We're going to do two verses today. One of them actually, so far as I can tell, is the only verse that we've seen so far that has no midrash associated with it in all of Chazal. There is a collection, a book called Torah K'tuba v'Hamsorah, which actually goes through all of Tanakh and points you to all of the midrashim that are associated with it. And this one has zero midrashim listed with it. But we'll look at a couple of the commentators, and it'll allow us to look at a second verse today as we march towards Rosh Hashanah. And also I should say this verse from Ezekiel only shows up in the tradition of the Machzorim that we have today, but in the old Eretz Yisrael traditions of the Machzor, they were choosing other verses. So it's interesting that we have a verse that doesn't have any midrashic tradition, but other versions of Zichronot have other verses that have other midrashim associated with them. Okay. Kicho amar Adonai Elohim, ve'asiti otach ka'asher asit, asher bazit ala lahafer brit. This is a sort of midah keneged midah, tit for tat relationship here. The Lord God says, I will deal with you as you have dealt, for you have spurned the pact, the Allah, and violated the covenant, the brit. So it seems like this is going to be, you broke the covenant, I will punish you. But then we get a sort of twist in the next verse, and this is our verse in Zichronot. V'zacharti ani et briti otach v'yimei ne'urayich v'akimoti lach brit olam. And here the vav is translated by JPS, I think, well translated. Nevertheless, or but, it's not and I will remember, but even though you violated the covenant, and I said I'm going to deal with you as you dealt with me, like we're in this locked conflict, nevertheless, I will remember the brit that I made with you b'yamei ne'urayich in the days of your youth, and I will establish it with you as an everlasting covenant. Now, we saw last time when the children of Israel followed God, Lechtecha Acharei Bamidbar, in their sort of love moment when they were, getting married, as it were, in the desert. This is another, I'm recalling our relationship in our younger days. So even though right now you've spurned me and I'm preparing to punish you, I nevertheless remember the covenant that was made in your youth. So let's just see how some of the traditional commentators read the verse. The Radak from the 12th century, you broke my covenant, but I will remember you still and will not break it, right? You, Arefarad et Briti, you broke the covenant of Alani as Karenu Od, Velo Afarenu. But I'm going to remember. So remembering here is the opposite of the cycle of punishment. It's the opportunity to say, I'm going to break that cycle and I'm going to remember you. I'm going to remember the covenant, even though you kind of don't deserve it because you broke it. This is the covenant that was between me and you in the days of your youth, which is V'hu Ma'amad Har Sinai. That's the original covenant that we made when you were young. For whatever Israel did from when they were in Egypt until they came into the land is called Yemei Ne'urim, the days of your youth. And similarly, we have Mitzudat David a few hundred years later. I will remember, this is to say, but I will not be angry forever. Right? Again, remembering here is the opposite of enduring punishment and negative feelings. Because I will remember the covenant that I made with you in the days of youth at Mount Sinai to be God for you, la'azor u'lehoshia. My end of the covenant, my side of the bargain was to help and to save, and I'm going to keep that part of the covenant, even though you broke it, because I remember the original covenant at Mount Sinai. So again, the verse that we see here is a remembering that also breaks the what should have been our punishment. We go back to an earlier time. Here it's not Zchut Avot, but it's sort of the larger Jewish people when they accepted the covenant at Sinai. That's what God remembers instead of bringing the punishment. So that's the 8th verse of Zichronot. The 9th verse, the last verse from prophets, is Yirmiyahu. Chapter 31, I think it's actually verse 20, not 19. Haben yakir li Ephraim im yeled sha'ashuim ki midei dabribo zachor ez karenu od. There's our zichronot. Zachor ez karenu od al kain hamu me'ai lo rachem arachamenu ne'um Hashem. Truly Ephraim is a dear son to me, a child that is dandled. That's JPS translation, sha'ashuim, like a plaything. Whenever I have turned against him, that's how they're translating midei dabribo, when I speak against him. Whenever I have spoken against him or turned against him, my thoughts would dwell on him still. That's how they're translating Zachor as Karenu Od. I still remember him. Even though I speak out against him, nevertheless, I remember him. And that's sort of like the dynamic we just saw in Yechezkel. Therefore, that is why my heart yearns for him. That's probably, me'ayim are probably more of the kishkad side of your body. Some part of my body is drawn to him. Rachem arachamenu, I will love him. I will receive him back in love. I will have mercy on him. Okay, so there's again a memory of a younger instantiation of the Jewish people when they're a child, a ben or a yeled, and even though I speak out against them, I'm going to remember them, and sort of this bodily reaction to the memory is going to cause me to have mercy on them. So let's see how this plays out in Midrash. Ephraim is a dear son to me, a child that is dandled. Yeled sha'ashuim. First of all, just a nice thing for parents. What age is a child dandled? So this is, of course, the rabbinic view of interpreting the verse. Well, what do you mean, Yeled sha'ashuim? How old is the child? And of course, there's a machloket. So one opinion is, well, the child is 2 or 3 years old. But Rav Acha says in the name of Rav Levi Bar Sisi, no, it's 4 or 5 years old. Okay, but it's a young child. We'll get a little bit more color on that in a minute. Whenever I have spoken against him, ki midei dabribo. Now they're going to try to figure out, what does dabribo mean? Rav Yudan said in the name of Rav Abba Bar Kahana, my speech that I have given him is enough. That is to say, dai diburo. It's not exactly clear what that could mean. Maybe it's the reproving that I'm giving through my words is punishment enough, and therefore the actual application of the punishment doesn't happen. It's dai diburo. It's enough with the words and not the actions. Maybe that's one understanding of that. Rav Yehuda Bar Simon said, I think this is what's related to the previous verse, even when I speak out against him, I cannot refrain from loving him. Afilu b'sha'ah she'ani omer, eini medaber imo, eini yachol lisbol. Right? Even in a moment when I say I'm speaking out against him, or maybe I'm not even going to speak with him at all. Midei dabribo. Maybe it's too much for me speaking. I'm going to just cut off all communications. Eini yachol lisbol. I can't actually handle that. I can't handle the full punishment, because God, cannot handle it, because I am so connected to them from like you think of a child, you want to punish the child, but you see the child is a delight, and you can't actually fully bring yourself to do it. You can't suffer to do the full punishment. And then one last interpretation, midei dabribo, ki midei dabribo, ki bivadai diburi bo. Certainly my speech is within them. That is to say, and this is all a drasha on Daber el Bnei Yisrael, speak unto the children of Israel, my dibur, my word is in them. And so even if they're sinning, they nevertheless are holding on to my word. And so ultimately they are the sort of living beings of my word, and therefore I can't fully punish them. So in both of these examples, in Yechezkel and in Yirmiyahu, we see the Jewish people is deserving of punishment. And indeed, God is about to punish them. And certainly in the Yechezkel verse, right before our verse. But then something happens, and God is sort of brought out to love the children of Israel again, almost like an emotional, non-rational reaction, like you see with a child who is a delight. Hamumei I, my innards are called out. I can't handle really punishing them forever. And so my mercy is going to take over, and I'm going to love them nevertheless. So again, it's this sort of doubling down on the relationship that we have here. Even though we have broken the covenant, there's a sort of a never-ending love that can't be beat by any particular action. And that's the way in which we are going to, to move through this holiday.